Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. Just give people 30 more seconds to filter in to the room. Hope everyone's having a great day. Look forward to some discussion at the end. As you have questions, as always, put them in the comments box as soon as you have the questions so that you don't forget it as we go. Okay, it's 1 past, so let's kick into it. Welcome, everyone. My name is Shaun, and I'm the Chief AI and Data Officer here at Devon. It's my job to ensure that Devon can effectively market, sell, and deliver AI-powered solutions to our customers. And I've been working with data in many different roles for 20 years now, with an increasing focus on data science and then AI over the past 10 years. And the last few years have been incredible for anyone with any level of interest in AI. The entry barrier to AI has really dropped in a way I've not seen before. And that has huge implications for everybody, all of our jobs, all of our lives, but our focus today is a little bit narrower. Our focus today is on the world that Devon inhabits, where we deliver value to our customers, which is the software development lifecycle, right? So you'll see that abbreviated to SDLC quite often today. That's our core business, right? So that's what we decided to focus today on. We have a long set of other AI Advantage webinars covering all kinds of other topics. And in the post-event email, we'll make sure to link you to those. But today the focus is very much on this topic, AI in the SDLC. And it's inspired by, the fact if you ask any technology leader, right, or any business leader who is dependent on technology, what is the most important metric that they need to improve, right? It's time to market, it's speed. And that's from their identification of some new need or maybe a changed customer need to the delivery of software that meets that need and creates that intended value. How long does it take? If you've ever delivered software or delivered anything, everyone wants it sooner, right? But because software can be expensive, because it can be challenging, you can't talk to a technology leader or a business leader who's not interested in accelerating time to market somehow. And so we've had, since ChatGPT broke in late 2022, we've had hundreds of conversations with customers since then. Many people who we talk to, who are responsible for software delivery, they're still searching for how AI can meaningfully reduce the time to market, right? So maybe these people are really impressed by AI's capability. They've seen it do cool stuff, but many people are still looking for, okay, but how do I make that count, right? And the key way that most people involved in delivering software want to make AI count for something is by reducing the time to market, making it take less time between we have a need and we deliver the need. And so that's our focus today, right? It's not that delivering these needs is slow, right? There've been a number of changes in how software is delivered over the past decades. I'll talk about those a little bit and how AI fits into those. Agile, DevOps, cloud transformations, all of these things theoretically accelerate time to market, right? Different organizations have taken advantage of those technologies in different ways to actually deliver that faster time to market. What we would really like as Devon is that AI builds on top of and augments those changes that have already been made, rather than dragging people back into any kind of dark age. And we'll talk about some of those risks as well a little later on. So yeah, today's goal is to share our answer to that question about how can AI accelerate time to market, the answer formed based on Devon's experience across 18 years and these conversations we've been having and the work that we've been doing, which we'll showcase today around the SDLC. So to be clear up front, we've not found any silver bullets, magic wands, or dancing robots, right? AI is not going to change the SDLC overnight. If it did, we would need to worry about what we were doing all this time, right? But what we have found, there are some areas of very immediate and obvious benefit from applying AI in the software development lifecycle. We have been a little bit disappointed by what we found in a few use cases, but on reflection, those disappointments make total sense. More importantly, we've found many more areas of the software development lifecycle where AI can reduce that time to market, increase our speed, but which aren't very hyped up. They're not the ones you see on LinkedIn. They're not the ones you see in television ads. We don't have television ads about that kind of AI yet, right? So we wanted to share some of these things today to try and educate you and help you see maybe some different ways to look at how AI can help the SDLC, some of the non-obvious stuff that we've found already. And so this is the agenda for the day. I'm going to start with what could look like a really silly question, right? Why do we even have software to begin with? Maybe that's a silly question, but the value of such questions is that sometimes answering those questions and getting clear on why we have something, so we have software and we have a software development lifecycle. If we want to add AI to that to make it better somehow, it's really good if we understand why we have software and the SDLC to start with, right? So answering that question will help us understand a bit more where to look for the AI opportunities that are feasible in the SDLC. Second, I'll talk you through some of the ideas that we have had and seen from others about where to apply AI, and crucially, what is the value in terms of time to market that AI should be unlocking. Then the third section will introduce some colleagues, some of our AI pioneers at Devon, people who've been working proactively with AI in their own software development with Devon customers for more than a year, right, to share some of these lessons learned and to help us understand where AI is still wanting a little bit. More importantly, they'll help me share with you where we are looking to next and answer any of your questions that come up in the Q&A. For those who stay to the end, there'll be a giveaway at the very end that I'll tell you about at the very end. And please, as questions come to you, ask them, and we'll try to get to all of those at the very end. Just a tiny bit about us so you know who you're listening to today. Devon, we've been developing software for and with customers for 18 years. We have a real focus on high-performing teams, agility, and a slightly different way of working. And we're now trying to layer AI into that so we can be a better co-creator and growth catalyst. And we operate globally as well for these customers, right? So we're working with a number of these clients on different kinds of AI projects. Some of them are, I need to use AI to predict a certain business outcome. Some are applying AI in the software development lifecycle itself. But for many of them, they're a little bit earlier maybe than some of you are who've turned up today. Something that we also offer, I'll talk about at the end, is you might be in a position where you need to get the basics right. You need to make sure every employee actually understands how to make the most of AI and how to manage the risks, right? So this is just to emphasize, we are really only at the start of the AI journey in software. And so it's okay if you're at different levels. We hope today, if you're responsible for software delivery, that you walk away with some really concrete ideas about how you can apply AI to that. So when I speak to any of those customers I talked about, the very first thing I try to convince them is this first point, right? More and more people are saying this now too. It's not just me. The game now is really about applying AI to the right data to generate value in our products and in our processes. Actually, relatively few companies are going to be the ones building their own AI. If you want to compete with OpenAI, Google, Meta, be my guest, right? A much smarter strategy is to realize that because of this incredible competition for those foundation models and the fact that a huge amount of AI is already open source and very capable and very well proven, even if it's not generative AI, AI is commoditized. If the thing that you want to do with AI doesn't exist today or isn't possible, it will exist soon, right? And if you want to understand why this is more detail, as I said, we've covered that in other webinars. So we'll jump through that content today, and we'll just go straight to, if we accept AI is becoming commoditized, what are the implications, right? What that means is the technology is becoming cheaper, more powerful. The entry barrier is lowering. We can do new things that we'll talk about today that we haven't been able to do before. We'll be able to do the same things better as well, which is always nice. That means every company can and will adopt AI at some level, right? The only question now about AI adoption is when and how. It's here. It is already impacting all of our organizations. It's already impacting how we develop software. It's our choice, right? How much we want to push into it. The flip side of this is if you thought that you were an early adopter of AI, especially in the software development lifecycle, Not long after you were an early adopter, everyone else also had access to the same stuff. So how does that affect time to market in a very concrete way? Imagine you're a newcomer to a company, and there's a bunch of sources you can look to understand how do people work here, what's the ways of working, how do I book holiday, etc., etc. If you're like me, then many places you've joined, you've looked at all those things, and you've actually been more confused, and you've had to ask a human to tell you and to point you to the right source anyway. And the common technology answer to this for the past 10 or 20 years is, let's take all of that information, put it in one single source of truth. Let's centralize all those different places you could go to find all the questions a newcomer might have. We'll put them all in one place, and then somehow we'll make sure they only go to that place, and then they will be not confused, right? Again, I've been in lots of organizations that have had 1, 2, 3 attempts at this. What they mostly have done is add that new central single source of truth is now a new source that you need to look in to find what the actual truth might be. And it's incredibly expensive to do that, right? Something we did at Devon late last year was, okay, how cheap is it to do that now? How quickly can you achieve the same result in a totally different way? And so something that is already totally commoditized is the ability to take a high-performing AI model, deploy it safely in your own private infrastructure, expose it to a mixture of public information, right? So our careers information and our internal employee handbooks, right? And put a chatbot interface on the front of that. And so if we think about what that kind of software project used to cost, then many times people tried to do it in the past, I don't think it would be possible to get any change back from it, 100,000 dollars, euros, pounds, anything, and often much more. We did it for much less than 1,000 of the same currency units, right? So anytime the cost of something decreases by 100 times, like, we really need to pay attention to the implications. And you might be thinking, oh, I don't develop those kinds of systems. I've worked at my company for a long time. I know how we work here. That example is irrelevant. But if you're anywhere near the software development lifecycle, then just before ChatGPT broke cover, another AI tool launched called GitHub CoPilot. Many of you might use it. My colleagues who will join me later on have been using it as well. It launched in 2022 to a reasonable amount of fanfare, but it wasn't as much fanfare as ChatGPT got. I put up this slide because it shows, Mitko Vasilev is someone that I follow on LinkedIn who is very, very, very big on taking different AI tools and techniques and making them possible to run on your laptop privately and free in terms of license cost, but you have to find your own computation, right? So he also talks about the fancy Mac computers that he wants. But the important point about this contrast is 2022, GitHub Copilot launches. There were lots of opinions that people had. It's improved a lot since then. We're on the verge, basically. So if you are as skilled as this guy, Mitko, you can get very similar results depending on what you're working on with the same, but by running models, right, that are open source models on your own laptop, right? So if we jump forward to one more year, so June 2025, I think it's going to be possible to have very clever code completion running on any laptop that you want for any language that you want. And if I'd said that to you in 2022, right before GitHub Copilot launched, you would have said, Shaun, you're crazy, right? But in 2 years, this is how much progress has been made in terms of the capabilities, right, to generate code. It's just one of the things we can do in the SDLC with AI. But importantly, the ability for that kind of technology to run in so many places. So many of the security privacy concerns that we may have really worried about in July 22, there are so many ways to solve that, right? And this is all coming for us, right? And again, in a year's time, saying that you're not using AI anywhere in the SDLC because of this, that, or the reason, someone will have solved the technological problem there for you already. You may have seen another kind of AI for software development lifecycle come out as a result. On the right-hand side, sometimes people confuse Devon for Devon, which is a little bit funny. But Devon, they have an AI-powered software engineer. So it's just a thing that you prompt and it builds software for you, and everything's good. And yeah, if you watch this hype space, every week, every month, there's a new tool claiming to do this, and the way that these are often presented is, gee, it would suck to be a software developer right now. It would be terrible to be in the software business because all software developers everywhere, RIP software developers, you're done. But what many people forget is that this has been predicted many times over, right? So when the very first software developers were developing software, it was this very low level, machine level code, right? And there were limitations, therefore, to what you could do with the code and the machinery that you had. As soon as high level programming languages came along, oh, we're going to need far fewer software developers now because every software developer can do a lot more in the same time. What happened? Well, more companies adopted more software and they expected more of software. Then visual programming tools came to make the next kind of productivity leap. Again, they were often heralded as, oh, well, we can get rid of a whole lot of software developers. We don't really understand them. They're very expensive. They're hard to train. We can free ourselves from that problem. Was there less software? No, there was more software, more demand. And the same with, frameworks and libraries, model-driven development, no-code, low-code platforms, and now generative AI. All that making something cheaper does, it means that you get more of it, right? So every single one of these things made it cheaper to develop software in some way. I'll touch on it later, they haven't always led to higher quality software, right? But every single one of these changes has led to more software being created, not less software being created. And yeah, at Devon, we kind of just ask the question back to the people who say AI will kill off software developers by saying, we're still here through all of these changes, which are arguably a lot of them are much more fundamental. Is one AI developer that can make a nice website really enough to replace all software developers, especially when we think about what the reality of software development is? So the lesson we take from that is we're still here, right? Why are we still here? Because unless you're, a kind of singularity freak and you're worried about, the end of human existence because of robots and AI. It's not me personally. I don't really worry about that. My view is it's a very long time until that happens, and there's a lot of good work that we can do before then. So let's get on with that work, right? So for now, software does not exist for its own sake. Software is not yet writing, running, benefiting from, paying the cloud bills of software. Software exists only for the value that it gives us to scale human outcomes to new levels, right? So this is why the demand for software developers keeps on increasing as software development gets cheaper, right? So each of these developments makes it cheaper to develop software in some way. Because it's cheaper, more people want to do more of it, right? So the demand for software keeps increasing much faster than the supposed obsolescence of software developers because of these tools. And that's because no company wants less software, right? If you could find a company that wants, they want fewer number of applications, but who wants to make their processes more manual, who wants to make that software lower quality, and who wants it to take longer time to deliver, to get back to the theme of today, right? Every company wants more of their processes, more of their value to be delivered with software because it scales. They want that to be of high quality and they want that to be delivered faster, right? Not because of software is cool in itself, it's because it allows us to do something for humans, right? Customers, clients, employees, right? So software is just a set of tools we use to do something more. And AI does not change this equation, but there's a bit of a problem, right? So the fact that software kind of keeps becoming cheaper to generate software and more people, more organizations want it and they want it faster, just think about the worst application that you use at work, right? Sometimes it's hard when we think of ourselves as consumers. We have so much choice. If we don't like this mapping app, we use a different one. If we don't like booking flights this way, we use it a different way. If we don't like this email, don't like this bank. As consumers, the switching cost in terms of software is so low that we can just, it's really hard to insist on shipping bad software to your customers, right? But if we think about our work life, where the competition is much less and the switching cost is much higher, we can all name an application that we really hate logging into when we have to, because it just doesn't do what we want in the way that we want. And that's the important thing we have to remember, and the key risk of AI in the software development lifecycle. Those things that have happened over decades that have allowed it to be cheaper to ship software, right, to put software in people's hands, they've led to a ton more software, but the quality of that software has not necessarily kept pace in all cases with the increase in the quantity of software, right? So there's so much more software. Every day there's more software. A lot of it's not very good, right? And there's a gap, therefore, between what people are expecting to get in terms of value and what they've been promised, right? Most of the things that have led to this acceleration in the amount of software, they have decreased the time to market, right? In terms of we finished our software, but time to market is actually about when you start creating value. And if you ship software that's rubbish and it doesn't create value, you haven't really decreased your time to market. You haven't done anything faster. You're going to have to work 2 or 3 times to deliver the very same thing. And I think this is true across all industries. And it's also true about software itself, right? So the way that we develop software and how we need to think about AI when we develop software is equally susceptible to this trap. Right, so what we face in software is the same trilemma that we face with any investment decision, right? Speed versus quality versus cost. And we cannot maximize all 3 at once. We can maximize 1 at once. We can trade off between 2. In reality, we need to trade off between 3. And so what a number of changes over the years have done, some of them technological, some of them organizational, what they've done, they shrink that trilemma, right? So they make the trade-offs less drastic. When you think about agile, DevOps, cloud, right, the promise at least, right, is that by relaxing some technological or process constraint, the decision makers who have to make these trade-offs, they still face a trade-off that has the same shape, right? But wherever they make that trade-off, they're making it over a smaller area, right? So they're always better off. Whatever trade-off you make inside the smaller triangle here, right, you're better off than many of the trade-offs that you'd have to make elsewhere. And it's not an accident that we look at software this way at Devon, because we have been early adopters of all of these previous changes, right? So we were early adopters of Agile as a way, not just of working internally, but of insisting that we work that way with our customers, and DevOps and cloud. And so the big existential question for us, and this is why we care about AI so much, is how can AI help us continue that same trend? How can AI lay it on top of these other things that have helped make those trade-offs less painful? How can AI push that trend forward? How can it improve the speed of something while also improving the quality at the same cost? Or how can it make something cheaper and faster without reducing quality? We don't want AI to be a tool that allows humans to be lazy, perhaps, and wind back some of these transformative changes, right? So we don't want to use AI to plug process gaps that will allow us to kind of pretend that we're being agile, but we're actually slipping backwards into waterfall, right? We don't want to use AI to kind of put technical workarounds in that mean that we can pretend that we're doing DevOps, but we haven't actually reached that kind of release velocity. That's the sign of, having made it, right? And we also don't want to do things that explode people's cloud costs, right? So every time we advance how the SDLC runs, we shrink this trilemma, right? We make it easier to get a good outcome with the same inputs, and we want AI to do the same thing. So if we go back to that slide and we look at recent history, we can learn something already, right? At every step through these decades, organizations face a choice. Do they use a new technological capability to kind of pretend that that trilemma doesn't exist? Unfortunately, when you look at lots of marketing, it's like, you can have speed, you can have quality, you can have cost. We've solved everything, and just give us money and everything's fine, right? One example that I'm familiar with is many organizations have adopted no or low code platforms with some great results. But some of them have adopted them in a way that they actually went backwards. And so they've grown the trilemma, right? Any no-code, low-code platform, if you use them, there are some things that you can do with them where they clearly improve speed and cost and quality all in one. And there are some things that you should never do with low and no-code platforms because you think you're doing them well. You think you're shrinking that trade-off and getting a globally better result, and actually you're just creating hell. So that's an example that's near and dear to my heart. No and low-code platforms, fantastic for a set of things, terrible for other things. If we jump forward to the recent past and these constantly announced AI developers, if tomorrow or even next year, you replaced all your developers with AI developers to save on cost, yeah, you might feel a momentary jump in speed for maybe 1 week, right? But it will be very fleeting. Real software, right? Most software in the world that it helps humans do quite complicated things, right? If you look at what the AI developers off the shelf, that are supposedly going to kill off software development, what they're promising right now is, I can make you a website if you type in, make me a website. Making a website's quite easy relative to the reality of enterprise software. So let's return to this question. Why do we have software? Why are we still here? We have software mostly to do things humans could actually do themselves, right? Maybe without a computer or without the previous version of the same software. Software creates some of its value by making those things easier to do, and it creates additional value by what it does with the time that it frees up, right? And everything that AI can do right now just helps us do more of that, right? So that might feel a little bit deflating. To me, that's quite liberating. If you're expecting AI to change everything about the SDLC, I'm sorry, the main mechanism by which AI creates value is by just making software better, right? And by making the process that we use software to deliver software better as well. And as long as you don't fall into the trap of worrying too much about the far-off future, the good news is, at this moment in time, the maturity of software development and the availability of data that we have to work with from what software has created over decades and the AI technology that we now have to choose from, they're all in sync in a way that they haven't been before. So if you've heard about the phrase AI winter, that's when a few times in the past, the ideas versus the data versus the software haven't been in sync, and it's been impossible to do some things that people could write down on paper, but it's been impossible to do them in real life. Because of software and digitization, data, processes, and software development itself and AI have all lined up on the start line, not the finish line, but the start line of the next phase of how we create value. So let's move on specifically to how AI can improve software and especially that time to market. This is just a summary of what we're hearing out there with our customers. AI is on everyone's mind, right? No one can escape it. Everyone's being asked, what are you doing with AI? Okay. But no one wants to throw away money. So lots of companies they've done their first or second AI chatbots, which might actually be their fourth or fifth chatbots overall, because they did chatbots 10 years ago, right? So people are now trying to get value. They're not willing to spend money on throwaway investments. The second point here is the goalposts keep shifting, right? So if everyone has GitHub CoPilot, if everyone gets a 10% bump in coding efficiency, everyone has that, right? So what actually can we do to get an edge? There are lots of valid concerns about, especially in software, right? The software that we develop, the code that we write, is the intellectual property and contains a lot of the value of the company. We want to be really careful about where we put that so that it doesn't leak out. And finally, how many organizations are actually ready if we did double or triple or quadruple the ability of developers to develop software tomorrow? How many organizations could actually absorb that and make the most of it? A lot about organizations needs to change before they can really take advantage of AI to begin with. So I'm going to talk through some examples we've seen at a higher level, and then I'll invite my colleagues to join us and show us specifically what they've been working on. But just before we get there, to get through all of these challenges this is scary stuff, right? I think for a lot of people. There's a very simple way that you can get through it. And the simplest way is to remember this. Again, you can go and watch our previous webinars if you want to get up to speed on this, but all the AI does, it makes predictions, right? That's it. It takes data that we already have. It could be documents, it could be pictures, it could be whole databases, it could be tabular data, it could be JSON, it could be code. Data that we already have, including prompts, right, which are just a form of text. It applies a transformation to them, right? And what's different about an AI data transformation is that it can be very simple, like a simple forecasting prediction. but it also can be very complex. So if you think about what a large language model is doing, it's saying, based on all of these inputs, predict the next tokens, and then stop at some point, and then do some kind of quality checks. It's a very complex transformation, and it's lossy. But we shove some data into it, and increasingly we can use all different kinds of data. AI transforms that data in some way with the goal of making a prediction. So all predictions do, and all AI is predicting, is take data that we already have, and they turn it into new data. And the new data could be just like the data we already have, right? So if we have a long document and we want to just continue that document, right, we can get the same kind of data back. But we can also develop some higher order predictions as well, so forecasts of things. And to make use of this well in the software development lifecycle, we probably have to unprogram some bad habits, right? So my bad habit as a data person is to always think about, what data do we have, right? Oh, here's some cool data. What can we build with that data? It's a valid perspective, but it's not the right one to start with. Another thing that different kinds of technologists sometimes fall trapped to is, oh, which AI can we choose? And they focus on that. Oh, there's new AI. How do we use this AI to do something? The most important thing we need to do, and it's true of all software development and in life generally, is what do we actually need to decide and do, and what predictions would be useful, right, to make those outcomes more scalable and accurate. So prediction is difficult, especially when we're dealing with the future. And the really scary thing, if you're like a software developer or you have an engineering mindset, is working with AI and working with prediction means you have to accept and embrace uncertainty, imperfection, and change. So anytime we hear someone say, AI did this and it was wrong, it's like, yeah, all AI is wrong because all predictions are wrong. But many predictions are still very useful if we know what to use them for. So how can we apply that prediction mindset right around the software development lifecycle? Where are the opportunities for AI to make a difference? How can we take this history of development of very few people in the world writing software to now many people writing tons of software? We've made a bunch of process improvements around agile DevOps. We've made some technological improvements around DevOps and cloud. How do we use AI to continue that journey? And it's pretty simple, right? Take any SDLC diagram. What's the goal of product management? Build the right products, right? What's the goal of project management? So actually building those things, build them in a better way. When it comes to designing and actually implementing them, maybe build those things in smaller sections so you can be more iterative. Build quality into it earlier and close the loop on what you end up building. So if we think about the left, we've had a number of conversations with customers and are working now on some projects to close the loop between the software that gets built and then how it gets supported. So if you go to any sufficiently large company, enterprise, these are pretty disconnected, right? Where products come from and then how they're supported by RT operations, often in completely different teams and completely different silos. The interesting thing is if we wanted to close this loop, if we wanted to predict which things about the products we've already developed can help us build the right products in the future, we now have a way to use a lot of data, right? So there's a huge amount of data in every company on what they've developed in the past. There's also a large amount of data on how that has performed in the real world. AI now allows us to join these things together. If we take that one step further, right now, somewhere in your company, development teams are working on changes that might cause problems. And there's only so much that we can test up front, right? But in your company, from the history of all the software you've developed and all of the previous things that have happened in your IT support outcomes, there's already data there which you could predict which changes to the software are most likely to cause future problems for the users of the software. Note my careful language, right? This is not a guarantee. It's, I said, most likely, right? And we can talk about that use case more in the Q&A. How does that fit into the framework I had? What's the data that we have? Well, all of the data we have on our products and how we've developed them and how we support them. What large language models help us do is extract from really vague data some quite useful signals. And the minimum viable prediction, the smallest prediction we can make that helps us close that loop better is what upstream change in some kind of software is going to break my downstream pipeline. That data exists. You could go and talk to everyone in the company, but I anticipate, because we're working on this with with customers, I anticipate that that will become something that everyone wants to do very soon, to be scanning the upstream work that's happening and predicting which things are people working on today that will cause a problem tomorrow. Another example, how do we join up the choice of what we build and kind of how we build it, right? So oftentimes the left-hand side is more a portfolio management task and the right-hand side is more a product management task. Typically, these are, again, different parts of an organization, and therefore these are disconnected data sets, but they're very rich, right? They have a lot of signal on what are the priorities, and they have a lot of signal on how much capability teams really have, which may not be visible if you look team by team. Let's put it back into that framework. What's the data we have? We have all of this rich data on the portfolio and how that's evolving. We have data on how the product development process is working. LLMs can help us process that text in a different way and turn it into numbers. And then we can use very simple prediction technologies to predict time. And one minimum viable prediction, right, that would decrease time to value, make us faster, would be predicting which products are likely to be late, given what's happening in the product development process and the portfolio overall. One more example, and this leads into what Pramod and Saurabh will show you in a second, is kind of more within the sprint, within the development cycle itself. Many of us, including Devon, have been trying to shift testing left for some time now, right? One of the barriers, persistent barriers we've found to further automation has been generating the manual test cases in the first place. It's easy to automate what you can generate manually, but one step further than that, we can only automate what's been specified. And it can be very difficult to actually understand what is the intended behavior of some software and to write that manual test. So again, just talking with another Devon team today, can we scan the actual software that we're trying to improve for changes real time or once a day in the data and the functionality? Can we use AI to assess the level of change, right? How much of a change is that? And predict the level of disruption. Again, the minimum viable prediction here is which new tests do we think we need because the software has changed in an unexpected way. And the way this decreases time to value and increases speed is the more tests you have, the more confidence you have to deploy things faster. Okay, so what you can see from these examples, lots of ways AI, can take what humans do and make it easier to do. Sometimes that value comes from getting more out of the data we've already been collecting. Sometimes it helps by actually improving the process itself, right? So AI just helps us create better software at lower cost and faster. The ways in which it can do that are varied. To really make the most of AI in the SDLC, you need to understand your processes in the SDLC very well. Otherwise, you're not going to get the compounding gains that you seek. So let's move on to some concrete findings from our own work. Saurabh, Pramod, if you're out there, I'd like to introduce you. You are both AI pioneers, I call you, because you're people who've been working with Devon customers for more than a year now on different AI tools. So tell us what you found, and then we'll go into the Q&A with the audience.
Thank you, Shaun. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pramod Sridhar. I'm a senior consultant at Devon. My expertise lies in backend development. Well, like Shaun mentioned, we've been applying a few of the AI tools across the different SDLC phases in our projects. And today I'll just try to walk you through on each of these phases and the AI tools which we've been using so far and how they impact the overall flow. Right. Next slide, please, Shaun. Okay, let's start with the product management. Here we make use of the Confluence AI. And as a product manager, I would be interested in creating roadmaps, MVPs, etc. Instead of me creating everything all by myself, I can make use of this Confluence AI with the help of a prompt. I'll be able to create my entire structure. In this case, I want to create a new product information in just 2 months, and then I have to split them based on weekly, along with some particular tentative date. So here you can see that it has neatly divided my tasks on a weekly basis, along with the tentative dates which I provided. And then I'm not going to stop there. What I'll also ask is to format this data in a neat table format, along with date, tasks, and status, which I can track in the future. Right? So it is trying to create a table now. Well, yes, it's still in the loading, so it can expect some issues, but it has done a neat job, at least to format the data in the initial stage, and I just have to encapsulate on it further. The next one is project management. Now that we have a roadmap ready, we'll start creating stories, epics, etc. Here we make use of Jira AI. And as you can see in the Jira, I'm trying to create a story, which is about creating a new API in the backend, accept the user information, and create customer data, and return the customer ID which is generated. So instead of me sitting and writing the entire description for the ticket, I'll make use of this AI assistant here, paste my content, and ask specific things to be done by it. Right. So the moment I click on enter, it starts writing everything what I asked for in this particular ticket. Right. You can see it generating, and here you go. You have the entire set of information which I wanted. So the English is taken care basically, and we can concentrate on the functionality. The next one is development. Here we are making use of GitHub CoPilot, and I will show you a classic example of taking a JSON file and then creating the entities, REST controllers, etc. So here is my JSON file to create a customer information. What I'll do is I'll go to GitHub Copilot, reference the file in the chat. Now I can start asking my questions towards it. The first question would be to create an entity. Of course, I'm giving some specific name here, and then I'll wait for Copilot to complete. I've split it up so that it can give me the results. Now I have this entity along with all the JSON mappings and the getter setters. I also request it to create a REST controller for me, which uses this entity and then creates a REST controller. There you go. The controller is ready along with the annotations which I want and also with the return type with the default, right? So this makes developers' job very easy. The next one in the list is creating JUnits. So if you want to create any test cases for the code I've already written with the help of Copilot, this contains a lot of switch cases as well. All I have to do is just select the code, go to GitHub Copilot, right click, generate tests. So this would open up the chat window again and starts writing the test case for me, including the new test class, etc. Right. So all I do is I create a dummy class for the test and copy paste the entire content. So that also provides an option for me to just click on that icon and it puts everything at the cursor location. All right. So my entire test class is ready. And what do we have here? We have all the dependency classes, the service which inject mocks, the repository with the mock, and the setup method which runs across every method, all the tests, etc. Right? It has neatly divided tests based on each switch case statement. The first one was about Gmail, the second one being about Yahoo Mail, etc., etc. So the 4 different switch cases have been covered here. Time to execute and find out if it works. All right, so the tests are running and it will pass, right? Quick enough. So the last thing what developers also do is we start taking notes. Recently, I upgraded my Java version to 17 and also upgraded the Spring Boot version. I made a list of notes, the issues I faced, the solutions I tried. I wanted to document that neatly. It looks so shabby when I copy everything to the Confluence, right? So let's see if Confluence AI, the tool which you use for product management, can also help developers. Well, I click on this icon and it accepts the information which I want. I'm asking it to divide my issues and the solutions phase in neat distinction points, right? So now I click on enter and there you go. It has formatted everything in a neat way and a structured way so that anybody can go and read across. Not just the developers, the entire team can make use of this Confluence AI in order to document things better. So for the next one will be about the QA and I'll hand it over to my colleague Saurabh for the next set of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod. Hi, everyone. My name is Saurabh. I am a senior consultant at Devon as well. And I am a QA, which is also the next set of features that we are going to show you. We'll start with, can you go to the next slide, Sean? Next slide. Yeah. So we'll start with the quality engineering part. We'll make use of GitHub Copilot as well to begin with. So to create a new test case, let's imagine you have a website where you want to log in and you have a login method available where you are logging in and verifying the title of the page once you have logged in. So if you have this available, if you press enter, you'll get a prompt from Copilot which will show you the logout method as well. So here, once we have pressed enter, it has added a logout method. That is the calculated guess it has made. And in this logout method, it has added the login. It has clicked on logout, and it has verified the login button from the first page as well. So you have the validation added to the same test case as well, and you have the whole test case ready in just one go. Then let's see how we can create new classes with the help of Copilot. We are following page object model here. We have the login page available with locators, constructor, and the login method. So we'll ask the chat option of Copilot to create a logout page for us. So if we put in create a logout page for us, following the page that we already have, it will create a new page for us. You see, it has everything: logout button, constructor, logout method, and you can just copy paste this code in a new class, and you have your logout page ready for you. Next, we'll talk about Postbot and AI provided by Postman. This is to verify the APIs that we have. If we have a collection of APIs ready and we click on generate generate tests, all the APIs are loaded on the right side. And all these APIs, if they are passing, we can create tests for the whole collection in one go. So the button you see on the right side, that is the new button provided by Postman. With this button, all the positive test cases, which all the positive responses that you are getting, 200 series, you will get test cases added for them. For negative ones, which could be a requirement sometimes, you can click on write for bad response. For positive one, let's say you have 200 and you have a JSON response, it will verify that. And in the response, it will verify the specific articles as well, whether they are like should be non-zero or string or integer. These things will be verified, and your whole suite is ready. Now to check for individual APIs, we'll go to this API. Everything that was added there will be present here. Once you run the API, here are your tests. Then you can go to the chat option. You can click on add more tests. It will do that for you, or you can ask it to create a specific test case for you. Like verify that name is there where status is available. Name is fish where status is available. So if you do that, it will add that particular test case for you, not just for that one scenario throughout the JSON response. It will create a loop for you. From the postbot, you have further options available like visualize response and documentation. Visualize response is very good. You can visualize the whole JSON that you have. Now we'll make use of Jira AI to search issues. This is something that is used by everybody throughout the project, whatever role you have, developer, project manager, scrum master. It will itself show you the kind of options you can use, like which tasks in the project EC don't have an assignee, and these kind of natural language queries you can put. I'll try one from my own side. If I put a query like find issues that are created by me. So if I write that, let's see, yeah, find issues created by me, it will automatically add a filter, creator current user. Similarly, you can make use of such search features, and anybody in the project can use. Next slide, Sean. Next one. So what we have shown you here, stories, epics, and searching for issues, that part. So we have been using Jira AI for that, and there we have seen more than 20% improvement. And this is something that is used by everybody in the project. So significant improvement can be seen there. Then for documentation, we saw Confluence AI, and there also anything English related part can be sorted out. You just need to do your own editing. GitHub Copilot we have been using for both development and QA, and this we have been using for more than 6 months. It has picked up our coding style and standards, and we have seen significant improvement here, more than 20% easily. And then you saw how easily we can create a test suite for whole collection if you are using Postman. There we have seen very significant improvement, and that is more than 50%. That is it from our side.
Excellent. And some of the questions that people have asked are the questions that I thought I would be asking you. So that's good. You've triggered the exact questions that we thought. A couple of points that to make there. I really like, Pramod, how you focus. Yes, some of what AI can do for you as a developer is improving how you write code, but so much of how you use AI is not about code, right? So you're thinking holistically about how to get the most out of it. Absolutely. And Saurabh, I really liked, you said early on in your explanation, you said calculated guess, right? This is its calculated guess on what is the right test or parameter. And that's the right mindset to have, right? Another way to think about it, it's making calculated guesses. Sometimes these guesses are really good and sometimes they're quite bad. One of the questions that came in is, what has been an area where you maybe expected a lot of help from AI, but it hasn't quite lived up to expectations? So where has AI maybe fallen short of what you wanted it to do?
Shall I go ahead?
Yep,
Yeah.
please.
So the part where Confluence AI we have been using, there we expected it to pick our project data more than it already has. We have used it for a while now, and it has not. So in other things, the improvement we are seeing, like especially Copilot, it has been picking up our data quite well. Now, the more you use it, the more efficient it becomes. But in Confluence, that has not been the case.
So yeah,
that is one. And even with respect to Copilot, if I can add on, yes, Copilot can help us in a lot of topics or issues. But when it comes to complex logics or when you have multiple classes involved, that's where the core business logic lies. So it can be a hit or a miss sometimes. So that is something which is still evolving. And yeah, that sometimes is not up to my standard of expectation.
That's yeah, that relates to another question or comment maybe that Dave sent in. A lot of the differentiation seems to be who can type the best prompts, right? So most of what we're able to get today, we require quite a lot of instruction of AI. We have to tell it quite a lot what we're trying to do. And that's fine if we have the patience. When it comes to logic, that's something that we've heard from other customers as well. Many enterprise companies have complex data models, for example. And wouldn't it be great if new developers onboarding to a team could get their head around a data model, which is a complex thing to get your head around faster. But I know in our discussions that's not something that yet that AI can yet extend to. But I know that AI can understand schemas, right? I know that as a data person, it can do certain things. So it is only a matter of time. Thank you for that. Yeah, we wanted to make sure that we shared some of the disappointments. How can we measure the uplift and the improvement? So we talked about time saving. You guys talked about time saving, right? And I think the way we've been thinking about that is you have to get down to the level of the specific task to actually generate the metrics on time savings. What other kinds of improvements do you think we can start to measure over time from AI?
Even with time, also what I want to say is, with respect to your previous question as well, yes, prompts are very important initially. But the more you use it, for you individually, it will start becoming more efficient. And that I'm talking about Copilot. And again, the more you use it, the time requirement also keeps coming down. So initially, like if it's helping you for 10 minutes throughout the day, by now we feel it's like an hour or so. So even within time, it's becoming more and more efficient.
And Jira AI as well. So it tries to sense through your epics or the entire folder structure. It tries to get some more information out of your previous topics as well. So it's trying to evolve with what we've been progressing.
Another question, does Copilot mainly work when you're starting a first draft and then lose momentum as you want to update? Like, where is the value that you're finding? Is it more on the blank page or the updates?
In both the case. So it depends on what exactly you want to achieve. Like in this case, when I started very first with just JSON data, I did not have anything. This started from the scratch and my API was ready. I can even instruct it to do further things, like even come up with a minimal business logic. So from the scratch I can do. Or the example which I showed you to create JUnit test cases, that method was created earlier through my regular coding. And then I use Copilot to suggest some additional stuff. So it was able to give me the switch cases, etc. So to summarize, it works with the new set of data and also with the existing set of data, but it evolves as we start using it more and more. So then it tries to learn from our patterns.
Initially, it will require prompts more. You're doing something, you're expected to do something, you add a prompt. But the more you use it, it will start guessing your prompts as well. So you need not write anything. You do one set of, like I write one test case, it will guess the next test case on its own. I need not write the prompt. I will get the prompt like, is this what you want?
So it basically learns our coding patterns.
And the other thing that's changing across those usages is, well, it's actually common to both new things and existing things. One of the key things is how structured is the data that you're feeding it, right? So it shouldn't be a surprise that when you have created, when you prompt in some JSON, that you can create REST controllers off the back of that. But it does make more sense that why is it not as useful for complex SQL logic from a data model when we can't yet shove all of the data, nor would we want to shove all of the data into the prompt. One last question for you guys. How long does it take to get a tool like Postbot to a point where it's accurate enough to be genuinely useful?
From the point of view, I have been using like feature-wise collections I have created, and every time I create a new feature, I create a collection for it and verify for it. So the automation I have with the Playwright is separate, but I have been verifying post bots throughout. If your API is running, you will have test cases generated in a second.
Yeah, so it can be useful for the lowest hanging fruit basically immediately from what you said. And again, the reason for that is it's not just when you're clicking a button, you're not just clicking a button. A lot of work has been done to create an API, which is a relatively predictable and well-documented and well-structured software interface. Again, so when we're looking for the easy wins, let's try and apply it to, we have the data we need, it won't take too much instruction, the logic is not too complicated. Of course, we all want to just press a button and, solve everything, reduce the data model from 1,000 tables to 500 tables, right, in one click. But I think what we've learned is the people who really understand software and how to improve it are the ones that are making the big gains. Just a couple more things before we close out. Thanks, guys, for joining and sharing that experience and also the perspective. We got through basically, there were about 10 questions and I summarized them to 5, so great job. Just wanted to share with the audience some of the things that we're looking to next, right? So across our conversations beyond what Pramod Sarab showed you, there's a number of things that kind of keep coming up, right? It's really hard to get quantity, quality, and realisticness of data to test things at scale, right? And AI can help us perhaps generate that in some cases. We do a lot of work in regulated sectors that need to translate English or other language requirements into code, right? Humans can do that. Humans with AI helping them to understand that can do that even better. And something that I'm sure everyone would love who's ever had to update documentation. What if we could make updating documentation a little easier? 2 more things before we go. So it's giveaway time. I said at the top, we have something to give away. So on this Monday, at our headquarters in Delft, maybe you know someone who you want to push on their AI journey. The first three people who email our colleague Bilal here will get a ticket to that course. It's not a AI for software developers course. It's a non-technical AI fundamentals course. And the goal is to get anyone, regardless of their job, comfortable understanding what AI actually can do and to apply it to some kind of everyday use cases that we all do in any job that we do. So if you're interested in yourself attending that this coming Monday, or you want to volunteer a colleague of yours for that, contact our colleague Bilal there. And then one more little advertisement before we go. Kevin, are you out there?
Yes, I definitely am, Shaun. Thank you for having me.
Tell us about your upcoming event.
Yes, thank you. So one of the big kind of happenings we see in the software world, apart from AI, of course, which you've heard about for the last hour, is that a lot of companies are focusing more and more on something called platform engineering. So taking general concepts that are bothering or somehow in the way of development teams and trying to come up with a solution that helps bring down the cognitive load that these teams experience. Otherwise, they have to find out the wheel for themselves apart from one another, which is a shame. What if you take that concept and you start applying it to IT controls? Then you get something that we tend to call compliance automation. So on the 25th of July, we'll have a roundtable with me and 2 other guys who have helped build a actual platform that focuses specifically on resolving IT compliance challenges and make sure that structures, tools, environments that teams tend to use through their work are either compliant by design or auto-generate evidence for set controls so that they no longer have to spend huge amounts of time essentially proving that the work that they do is actually compliant. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can join us on the 25th of July in our office in Delft. Starting at 10 o'clock, we continue through lunch, and lunch is included. So if this sounds interesting to you or to anyone that you know, especially for highly regulated companies, this is especially important. Hit us up and we're more than happy to share our experiences, share a roadmap, and tell you all about how we got to a platform that essentially automates compliance for us.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. And in the age of AI, do you think there'll be more or less need for such compliance automation?
I think there will be more, especially because, one of the big topics, as a little spoiler for the session itself, one of the big questions that keeps popping up: when is good enough? And for me, the only way to really get to an answer where you can say good is good enough is to put it into automation. Otherwise, you keep having discussions about everything, and automation has this funny side effect of you being forced to make things explicit, and that's where the gold really is.
And that's exactly what AI needs as well. And perhaps
Exactly.
AI can also help that. When we know actually what good looks like or what compliant looks like, we force ourselves to write down something. And now we know how to test, is this a hallucination or what? Which is something that a lot of people are struggling with. They're getting unexpected results. My question is, well, what were you expecting to begin with? And when people go silent when you ask them, well, what were you expecting? That's why we talk so much about testing in this webinar, and the big challenge there of, we can automate these things. We need to know what people are expecting, what good looks like, what expected behavior is up front. So thank you for coming along and sharing about that. Thanks everyone for attending today. We'll send out a recording and details of these events in a follow-up email. Thanks for all your questions and engagement, and thanks to all of my colleagues for joining me today. We'll see you on the next webinar. Bye for now.
Bye.